Senior Moments with Louie Montalvo. For this episode, we have as our guest the author of this book, The Call to Lead, Mr. Jake de Guzman. He is a good friend of mine and part of the faculty of the Ateneo Graduate School of Business. During the launch of this book a few days ago, I was part of the panel that helped discuss the content of the book, and I thought this is a good book for us to discuss for our podcast and be able to frame the discussions on the ideas of this book for those of us who are in our senior years. We hope you will like this episode and learn a lot from me and from our guest. Because Jake is currently in Canada, this episode will be via Zoom. Now we will begin our podcast. Hi everyone, again this is Senior Moments with Louie Montalvo. For today, our episode will talk to Mr. Jake de Guzman, the author of the book, The Call to Lead, via Zoom because he's in... Jake, where are you? Where in Canada are you?
I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Oh, Vancouver. Jake has been a friend from way back. We were together when we were both thinking of becoming a Jesuit, and we both left, and we found ourselves together again as faculty of the Ateneo Graduate School of Business. And we'll talk to him about the book and see how relevant is it to those of us who are already senior citizens, and many of us have already retired. Is it worthwhile to talk about leadership when we've retired already? Does it make sense to read this book? And it's really that kind of an idea that we thought of inviting Jake to our podcast. So Jake, good morning. What time is it in Vancouver right now?
It's 6 p.m. in Vancouver, and you're in the future. I'm in the past.
Okay. Sige. So as we told our audience, this is really an opportunity for us to discuss your book. And siguro we'll start off. Why did you write this book? And what prompted you to write this book? And for whom?
So it was pandemic, and as you know, during that time when we had to shut down online classes, move to asynchronous and Canvas, and redesign our classes, I found na I was having a hard time dealing with it. I couldn't teach, but I couldn't teach over Zoom. And I go, what will I do? Uh, and I found, why don't I write? Why don't just random thought of, what if I write down all my lectures, the stuff I would have given. And I go, yeah, that makes sense. That's like, it's positive contribution. It's reflective. It seems to be answering an interior need of the moment to reflect and recap. Because the ideas in the book were not just relevant for me in teaching, but also relevant for me in looking at my life and building my own company at that stage. No, so I thought doing that would be good. And then I think the final motivation was, I read somewhere that when you write a book, that the amazing thing about writing a book is someone can pick it up a century after you've passed and still interact with your ideas. And something about that made sense to me. I don't know if it was the sense of legacy or that. Um, and I wrote the book, and I think I dedicated it to everyone, to all my students who have gone through the class, and everyone who will go through the class.
Sige. And that last point that you raised, and during the launch of your book a few days ago, the department chair, Mars Balgos, talked about it's really a textbook for our class in leadership here in our business school. But the people that are listening to us, and this is really just to be able to catch their attention very early on, is why are you talking about a textbook for your school when we are not students, and it's senior moments and it's for senior citizens. JJ, my producer, 33 years old, and like many people of his generation, is a freelance person, will probably never enter into the corporate world or be in an organization leading. So siguro we can disabuse that notion of leadership, the whole concept. Parang is this book for those who are only have leadership positions at the moment, and that's why this book is relevant to them? Or can someone who is already not occupying a leadership position or doesn't intend to do so in the near future, how relevant is this book? Should they even read this book?
Yeah. Um, Good question. I think that's actually one of the questions I was struggling with as I wrote the book, no, or even as I introduce it. Uh, why does this matter? It's a question we ask in journaling. Why does this book matter? Why do these 180 pages matter? Um, and I think my real desire is it's for anyone who's asking themselves the question, what will I do with my life? It just so happens, luckily for us, that these are questions we ask in the leadership course at the Ateneo Grad School of Business. But whether or not you're taking your MBA or in a leadership position or want to be or find yourself to be, I think everybody is in some form or other asking the question, what should I do with my life?
Sige, ano yun, I really like your response. And siguro, balikan natin yung tanong on, is this a book that is only for those who have a former leadership position towards the end of our conversation? The next one is, and again, for those of us who are listening, Ateneo is a Jesuit institution, and by the very nature, it was established by the Jesuits, a religious order, so its overall paradigm and worldview is that from coming from a Judeo-Christian paradigm or framework. So, Jake, if I'm going to look at the title, The Call to Lead, it assumes there's someone doing the calling. And we know from our tradition as ex-Jesuits, as Christians,
Yeah.
we don't question that we are being called because there's someone doing the calling. And what if I'm not from the Christian tradition?
Yeah.
I'm from the Buddhist tradition where there's no such thing as a personified God, or I don't even believe in one.
Yeah.
So parang for those of our audiences who might not be from that framework, parang again we can come back to this particular point as we do our conversation, but it might be also interesting to further expound or elaborate or disabuse the notion that the title of your book, The Call to Lead, presupposes a God who calls or an entity who calls. What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. No, I use it because that is the language and the tradition that the school falls under, and I thought that was important to put that in. But doing the in my own life and in doing the research from Jungian psychology, narrative, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, a bit of Buddhism, Eastern spirituality, Hinduism, and even mystical Catholicism, mystical Christianity, that I did. There's this experience of an interior desire. Carl Jung called it a transcendental function. Like when you look at the story of your life, there's really something that's moving you from the inside out. The Judeo-Christian, the Catholic, the Christian tradition has called it vocation, diba? From the Latin voca, call. It seems like someone is calling you, and the tradition says, "Oh, that's God calling you." But I think the phenomenological or the lived experience is it's felt on the inside. Anybody in any place in the world over time has felt this desire for more, a longing for something more, a dissatisfaction with the present. Yung, is this it? Life is okay, but okay lang siya. Parang, isn't there something more? Shouldn't there be something more? Parang these questions have followed us since the since recorded writing, right? Since the ancient Greeks. Parang we've asked the question, why are we here, and why are we here, and what are we supposed to do with our lives? So no matter what tradition, I think the value of the book, or what I've tried to put into the book, is what is the lived experience of people who go through this thing we call.
Galing. So it's really parang, and we use this language, what is the steering from within, and it's something that allows us to give us a clue on where it is that we should go and what it is that will be our source of happiness or contentment, or where we should lead our lives. And this is siguro and I initially thought we will use the structure of the book as a way to structure our conversation, pero siguro I'll start from medyo nasa gitna o nasa dulo na yung when you talk about passion, when you talk about purpose. And when you were talking just now, parang again, I'll bring in my own experience when I turned 60. And as I'm moving more into this particular area of my life, period of my life, I remember, I don't remember kung during our lunch or somewhere else, parang the question of anong ginagawa mo dito? Ba't ka ba nandito? I think that when it becomes in Filipino, I think the question becomes a certain power to it. Bakit ka ba nandito? That's really a question of purpose. Ano mang ginagawa mo dito also? Pero sa akin, when I turned 60 and now, parang when I am fully aware that the years behind me is much, much more than the years in front of me. When there's a growing sense, greater sense of mortality, because I've lost many friends. We've lost Lino, a good friend of ours. And I seems that every year I seem to be losing many people in my life. I think the framing of my question at this age is, ano pa ba? What else should I or can I do? It might appear as the same question, but I think the nuancing of the question seems to have shifted because I am very much aware that I don't have as much time. Ano pa ba ang dapat kong gawin? Ano pa ba ang kaya kong gawin? And I think the perspective of limits and constraints are more apparent as one ages. Physical, financial, time. So yon yung so siguro yung and I'm jumping I'm throwing these questions to you na hindi kita prenup for the sake of our audience. So yung if that were the sense of someone who will decide to read your book, and that's already the frame of reference, what do you how do the questions you put in your book help someone like myself answer those questions na kasi it's one thing to answer those questions when you were 30 eh. Kasi there's a whole notion of ang dami ko pang pwedeng gawin, and I'm about my sense of purpose and sense of meaning, pero what, I have 10, 15, if I'm lucky, 20 plus years to go. Yun.
What was that poetic? How does that poetic line go? There are more summers behind me than there are in front of me. Yeah. And that idea of what was that movie with Robin Williams? Was it Millennium Man? Diba? He was an android, he was a robot, artificial intelligence. But his great goal was, I want to be as human as possible. So he started changing, diba, his outer appearance, putting skin, ganyan. And then sabi niya, but in order to really make that leap, to have that human experience, I have to put a limit. Kailangan mamamatay ako. And that is the one that, diba, in that movie shifted the character of the robot of Robin Williams from robot AI to more human. So parang what makes us human is the limitation that.
Oh, pero we know naman when we were younger, we always we had this notion of invincibility and immortality. Parang
Yeah.
it's only when we reach a certain age that may limits pala kasi I think
Yeah.
part of the folly, the fallacy, and the blessing of youth is we can do anything. And as they should. Pero yun nga,
Yeah,
parang
yeah.
at this point in our lives, parang how does that change the questions that you had asked in the book? And how useful are the
Yeah.
tools that you put there?
So I think honestly, I was thinking about this as I was getting ready to launch the book. That the book is really
Before we continue with this episode, we would like to explain to you how a podcast works. Aside from views, subscriptions, and likes, help us know and determine how much we're able to reach our audience. We notice based on our analytics that 60% of you who are watching us have not subscribed on our YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast. So we would like to request you as you're listening to us to please press that button, like and subscribe. It will help us with our advocacy and move to continue what we're doing. Now let's go back to our episode.
the the book is really is its intention is really for those going through the first half of life, for those still trying to build their careers, trying to find a way to fit their their passions, their purpose, their significant experiences, their personalities, and try to find a way in the world and be of service to the world, and adapt to whatever the world has asked for. Yung nga, to be Filipino ba and to study in Ateneo Business School or to come from UP. What does that mean, diba? How do you do that in the world? And that already is a big hero's journey, is a challenge. But that is the challenge of the first half of life, to find your place in the world and to make your mark in the world. I think for someone going to the second half of life now, the questions change. And we can talk about that a little more, diba? What are the questions? What are the nature of the questions? Um, so someone my age read the book and I asked him, how is it valuable to you? Because this is really meant for younger people now, for the people in the first half of life. Um, and he didn't say it clearly, but in our text conversations, I think the questions in the book, the contents of the book, looking at yourself, what comprises yourself, your personality, your patterns of strength and challenge, your family structure, what you have inherited intergenerationally from strength to weakness, and what are the significant formative experiences in your life, diba? The stuff that has made you you. Um, those questions and that opening up of the self-awareness muscle help this person look at the story of their life. And I think that is one of the and to understand that story of their life, that hero's journey. This is what I've gone through. Oh, that's why I went through this, diba? And the self-awareness is always empowering. It's always, yeah, there's a grounded empowerment with the self-awareness. And I find people nga who get older, especially men, parang they need to tell the story of their lives. Diba? Where have I come from? What have I experienced? Nung bata ako, nung panahon namin, nung ito nangyari sa akin, parang it's a recapturing, it's a remembering, it's a passing down of wisdom. Hey, I have walked this earth and these are the things that have passed through me. Anak, bata, estudyante, whatever. Ito yon. Parang ganun. So I think that's one of the things to be able to find the tools to look at themselves and say, oh, this is why my journey has been this way. And to be able to tell it. And I hope that opens up to something. But when you open up the self-awareness muscle, other things open up.
A couple of things that I got from what you said, Jake. While it's true that the original intent of your book is for those who are still in the first half of their lives, I think, and I think what I got from you was that the stories that we tell to ourselves and to others about the life, the journey of our life, I think becomes more important when we're older.
Yes.
Because, one, as you said, it's a question of being able to define what's my legacy, what am I leaving behind. And in a way, it's also a matter of what we call sense making. Does
Yeah.
my life actually make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And when you were mentioning the term hero's journey, it's really for those who have done read it, Joseph Campbell's book, where one's life is composed of a series of chapters. And then, sorry, medyo random. Sa akin kasi, Jake, when we talk about self-awareness, we assume that people actually had taken the trouble when they were younger to develop that muscle of self-awareness. It is possible that some of those people listening to us right now have never asked these questions their entire lives because they were too busy earning a living and taking care of their family, particularly men. So it might seem that the questions that your book poses are things that can be asked or should be asked when one is much younger. It's possible that those of us listening to us right now might say, hindi ko, kahit kailan hindi ko tinanong yung tanong kung sino ako at para saan ang buhay ko. Parang, isn't it obvious that I'm here for my family, and every day I go to work because I needed to raise my family and raise my children. Parang, what purpose are you else talking about? And it's possible that there are people right now listening to us, Jake, who are confounded by the very idea that there are such questions like these because they've never asked it, despite the fact that they are 55, 60 years old.
Ako,
My experience, Louie, parang everybody asks it, especially the younger generation. They're more attuned to it. Yung labanan lang, I think, is the amount of consciousness. Like, some people will say, nagtatanong sila, pero ayoko sagutin. I'm doing naman my duties to my family. I'm earning a living. Nagbibigay ako sa nanay ko, sa mga pinsan ko. Swerte ako kasi ako yung nakapag-aral, di ba? Parang tinatanong nila, pero binabaon. In the, binabaon kasi mahirap yung sagot or walang, or it needs help eh. You need help to go through some of the questions. Mahirap siya pagdaanan na mag-isa.
So kung ganun yung if someone listening to us is exactly how you described it, nagtanong at some point pero binaon, hindi hinarap dahil for whatever reason. Now that you've raised that possibility to me, what can I do about it? Is it too late? Is it too late?
Is it too late? Never.
Ako, I don't think it's too late. That it's really never too late. And even when time is done and hindi ka lang low bat, no bat ka na, okay pa din. Parang it's never too late.
And which also means that for those of us who have slowed down in their lives, as far as work is concerned, the children have all been raised, we might have more time on our hands. Maybe now is the time to actually get your book and go through the questions of your book and take it a little bit more seriously, just to be able to again to define the stories of my life and find more sense making on what I've been through as a way of looking back at, and maybe to be able to further clarify what do I want to do with the rest of my life.
Oo. I think yung maganda yung tanong, Louie, yung parang, what can you do if you're asking, what can you do if the question disturbs you, di ba? Meron pa ba akong passion na hindi hindi buhay or na linibing na na nakatulog. Meron ba akong sense of purpose, something I want to do more with my life than just earning a living. Uh, rem- remember the early 1980s Voc Prom poster sa Ateneo, diba? Do you want to sell soap the rest of your life? Parang gano'n, di ba? Ito na ba yon? Or I think it's Richard Rohr, si Father Richard Rohr, writing about the second half of life, says, there's really an experience na you climb the corporate ladder, tinayo, yung nga, tinaguyod mo yung career mo, yung profession mo, kumita ka, you have raised the economic and psychological health of your family by one generation. And then pagdating mo sa top, ay, hindi pala to. But this is not what I wanted with my life. So what can you do? I think, again, a lot of old wisdom traditions or even new studies on happiness, fulfillment always say the same four things. Uh, Using of talents and skills and the sense na you are growing. May parang you're building something. Example, parang halaman, 'di ba? Nagpapalaki ka ng halaman. Nakikita mo may sense of satisfaction. So same thing with your talent, skills, passions. Other one is connection to family and community. Do you feel connected? Do you feel connected? So, nga, if you're not using and what are the two other things? Family, so relationships, so very close relationships, family, community, service, and so basically those three things.
What are those three things, Jake, that you were mentioning? Ano
So-
sila?
Using your passions and skills. So that's one and two, passions and skills, relationships, close relationships, family, siblings, significant other, and then community service. So if you feel like medyo stuck ka sa buhay mo, you can look at those four things and say, saan yung hindi ko nagagawa? Like, okay, you give whatever, 10 hours sa trabaho, earning a living for your family, a bit of time for yourself, take care of your wife, your kids, with whatever time you have. Uh, Kulang yung community, kulang yung ano, 'di ba? What can you do ng konti, 'di ba? What is doable that you can serve your community better? So you'll see this in mid-lifing men, 'di ba? Senior men. Suddenly, lay minister, suddenly nagle-lay minister, suddenly nag house to house, prayer meeting, family meeting, sits on the board of their associations, yung iba nagbabalak tumakbo, counselor, barangay, ganyan. Nagbibigay ng consulting, start an NGO, volunteer, ganun. So, suddenly may mga ganun. Skills nga. What if artist ka and then kailangan mo magtrabaho sa corporate Philippines? Whatever, accountant. Ang layo, di ba? Accountant, ano. Can you do it on your own time? Like meron akong kausap dito na he had to forgo pause writing. And creative person siya, nagsusulat siya. Non-fiction, fiction, prose, nagsusulat siya. But he had to forgo it because he had to raise the family, take care of the kids. So ngayon, nagbibigay lang siya. Can I give myself 15 minutes every day? And sabi niya, I will just sit down and just give myself permission to do that. I can write anything or I can write nothing, but just 15 minutes, that's for me. It's amazing what happens when you open up those other areas of your life. Psychologically, there are different intelligences. Hormonally, they activate different, diba, hormones from oxytocin to dopamine to ano. So iba-iba yun. So iba-ibang strength siya. So never too late. If you feel stuck, look at what area of your life, which we talk about in the book, that's missing, and you'll be surprised how things open up for you.
Interesting when you said those things. And I think, and we know this naman that much of my life also was in service. Organization, country, others. When I turned 60, I think part of, and I wasn't conscious that I was answering in this way, yung ano pa ba. I've started running.
Nice.
I did my first 5K 5 kilometer run last year, and I've gone back to school. I'm doing my PhD.
Wow, great.
And on both instances, parang it has got nothing to do with, well, it partly, pero I do it because I want to do it for myself. When I'm in school and doing my classes and I struggle with the subject matter and I find myself understanding it differently, or in a different in a manner that now I get it. Parang the kind of thrill and joy that I get from. And when someone asks me, but at your age, para saan yung PhD mo? Sa akin now I realize because I want to continue learning. When I'm running, it's because I realize that there is a particular pleasure in running, and I think it's part. What I'm saying is that especially men who have spent most of our lives because we need to do it for others. I think when you reach my age, yung parang we need to give ourselves the allowance and the space and the moment para sa atin naman. Kasi siguro I just need to balance, and I can understand other people what you were saying. They need to reach out to do lay ministry work, do more apostolate. Parang sa akin, I think I also want, in my own experiences, that the balance that I've trying to discover at this point in my life is I will not feel guilty because I'm doing things just for myself, and it does got little to do with the notion of service.
Yeah.
Sa akin kasi parang even during the launch when is yung and because we're trained that way as former Jesuits, Ignatian, more in the service of God and others, parang sa akin, I'm not dissing that. I think that is an important consideration. But I think, pwede bang ako naman muna?
Iba yung movement, no? Parang there's a shift that happens from wow, what was his name? This researcher from Harvard, social researcher, professor from Harvard. Sabi nga, there's a shift from achievement, needing to achieve, even service naman. Diba? Pwedeng charged yun with a sense of achievement or doing something useful, being useful in the world, diba? Yung framework lang is service. Pero yung energy nun is ganun pa rin na is I have to find my place in the world and be useful and be sort of validated by the world. And then it shifts nga in older age na, I can do something for its own sake because it gives me joy. It doesn't have to lead to anything. And that's partly, I think, partly the mysterious thing, diba? Na parang it doesn't have to lead to anything. Yeah. I just feel more me.
Yeah, and sa akin yung kanina, parang ano pa ba? At the other question that has become more clear to me is kailan pa ba? If I don't do it now, I do not allow myself to do certain things, I might find myself running out of time and I will look back and regret not doing it. And again, I think that's part of the journey of a greater sense of mortality, where kailan pa ba? Kung hindi ngayon, kung gusto kong gawin, gagawin ko. I will do it now because I'm not sure what tomorrow will bring. We know of people who never wake up in the morning, and all of a sudden you realize that this notion that we have all the time in the world is not really true. And so, kailan pa ba become and I don't know if other people listening to us right now might realize, the things that I've held off because there were other more important things to do. I need to do with my life and with my time because many other people were depending on me. Now, give ourselves the luxury and the freedom to say, gagawin ko just because. Kasi if not now, kailan pa?
Mm, mm, mm. Parang it's a nga in the second half of life, meron ganun, 'di ba, na yung nga, I would very much like to have this experience in my life. So why not? And let me whatever time, resources to do it. But at the same time, part of that is, and nadidinig ko rin 'to, parang alam mo, okay naman yung parang kung ito na yung buhay ko, okay na. Parang I heard someone say, alam mo, Jake, hindi na ako ano eh. Alam ko, ito na yung career ko. Ito na, naabot ko na yung maaabot ko. I, I don't have the energy, the age, the marketability to get any better than this. Parang ito na yon. Okay na. Parang okay na rin. Parang may acceptance. No? May hoping for other things, but acceptance too. Yeah.
How would that fit in? Kasi, and we'll probably try to show that illustration. Yung ikigai, yung four circles mo, and then may intersection. Parang if this is where I am at the moment, how much of that particular framework might be still useful for me?